Hi, everyone. Welcome to Grief 101. I'm Jen.
And I'm Heather. Today, we're going to explore some essential aspects of grief to help us better understand and navigate this journey. Let's start by talking about grief states, not stages.
Many people are familiar with the idea of the 5 stages of grief. However, we prefer to talk about grief states, which recognizes that grief is not a linear process. Grief is more like a series of waves that come and they go, rather than a checklist of stages to be completed.
Exactly. Grief states can include feelings of shock, numbness, anger, sadness, and even moments of peace. These states can fluctuate, often unpredictably, and it's important to know that whatever you're feeling is valid.
And to give a brief overview, common grief responses can vary widely. Some people might experience physical symptoms like fatigue or changes in appetite. Others might feel emotional reactions like intense sadness or anger. It's common to have cognitive effects like difficulty concentrating and forgetfulness.
It's also important to remember that our social relationships might be impacted when we're in those early stages of grief, as well as having existential questions, or our spirituality may be impacted. And then behaviorally, like we might have more bursts of tearfulness, or an increase in risky behavior or impulsiveness, or just overall irritability. And so remembering there's not one right way to grieve, and that these 6 different common grief responses are going to impact how you navigate your grief journey.
In our next segment, we'll discuss the spectrum of grief and our circles of support. Stay with us.
Welcome back. In this segment, we're going to talk about the spectrum of grief and circles of support.
Grief exists on a spectrum. Some people might experience what we call instrumental grief, where they're focusing on doing and taking action as ways to cope. And others might experience more intuitive or emotive grief, which is more about feeling and expressing our emotions.
Absolutely. And both types of grief are normal and valid. And we might fall on different parts of that spectrum depending on the day or the season or the relationship that we had with the person we lost. You might find yourself leaning more towards one type or even experiencing a mix of both. And understanding where you fall on this spectrum can help you identify the support you need. And it's important to know in family systems how different people experience grief on the spectrum, knowing that maybe someone is more of an emotive type and someone's more instrumental. It can help reduce our proclivity to compare that one person might be grieving one way versus how I'm grieving, and that maybe I'm grieving wrong, when really both ways of grieving are absolutely valid.
Yeah. And speaking of support, as we are thinking about those that we're connected with, let's talk about some circles of support. Imagine 3 concentric circles, just like this, right? The innermost circle represents those who are closest to you, family, maybe best friends, maybe a partner. And those are the people that you lean on the most.
The middle circle might include friends and acquaintances who can provide support, but might not be as intimately involved. They might be someone who's a good distractor or can help bring some levity or just meet up for coffee. And then the outer circle is made up of people who can offer occasional support, maybe coworkers or community members. Maybe they're people that are more of the doers in our lives, and they can come help with a project or fix something that we're struggling to find the motivation to take care of or manage on our own when we're in that more acute grief state.
Right. Identifying who fits into each circle helps us to understand who we can turn to for different kinds of support. We typically will have people who show up, just like you said, as doers, or maybe they provide some respite for us. Maybe they give us some distraction. And then we may have those that are supporting us really emotionally, and knowing who we go to for different types of support can be really useful.
Absolutely. So in our final segment, we're going to discuss the dual processing model, a little bit about boundaries, and the importance of rituals in grief. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. In our final segment here, we're going to explore the dual processing model, boundaries, and the role of ritual in grief.
The dual processing model of grief suggests that people oscillate, kind of like an old school kitchen fan, between grief work and restorative work. Grief work involves confronting and processing the loss, leaning into that pain, while restorative work is almost like coming up for air. It's engaging in those activities that can feel life giving or help us feel more grounded or restore a sense of normalcy and just help us feel supported when we're in those acute grief states.
And that oscillation back and forth is natural and it's necessary. Some days you might feel like you are just being inundated with your grief and it is overwhelming. And other days you might feel that you're able to get some things done or take a break, focus on your daily life. And that can change that oscillation pattern at different times. Both are important parts of the healing process.
Absolutely. Another critical component when grieving is learning how to set boundaries. Boundaries really help us protect our energy and our emotional well-being. This might mean saying no to certain social events or even asking for help with tasks. Maybe you're not used to receiving help, and this is the season where you get to stretch yourself to being a receiver because you're adjusting to this new normal.
And finally, let's talk about the importance of ritual. Rituals provide structure and meaning during times of loss. They can be simple, like lighting a candle in memory of your loved one, or elaborate, like organizing a memorial service.
Rituals help us honor our loved ones and create that sense of continuity and connection. And they can provide comfort and a way to express our grief.
Thank you for joining us here in Grief 101. Remember that your grief is a personal journey. There's no right or wrong way. It's okay to seek support and take care of yourself along the way.
Absolutely. We're here for you. We welcome you to the Mourning Movement community and encourage you to be kind to yourselves today. Take care.